Welcome back to UK Theme Parks and welcome back to episode 2 of our Christmas park. Now then, at the end of episode 1 we were completing the finale of our dark ride, our little sleigh ride into the Snowman Lake, as you can see here. Now that's done, we need to build the front part of this. So the beginning of this video is going to be very much finishing off this dark ride. Now then, as you can see there, we're going to pull back the building a little bit so you actually enter on the outside of it rather than on the kind of inside of the building. Now the reason for that is we want to kind of give it the outdoors look, the kind of sleigh look, and then you enter the building full of, you know, sweets and presents and gifts and things before heading into Snowman Lake and then coming back out to the entrance again. We're going to be quite quick in finishing this one, as we are going to move on and build our first roller coaster for the park. And I'm telling you now, this is the most effort I think I've ever put into a roller coaster. I really can't describe how long this took me to do. However, we're in a sped up video, so you'll be pleased to hear you won't see all of it, but let us know what you think of the results. Now then, it's important we get this dark ride done. 100% get this dark ride done. So what we're doing here is we're going to do the entrance. The ride is going to be called Winter World, and you're going to literally enter into the building. We're going to put some nice flashy lights out here. And we're also going to use coloured lights as well, rather than the standard white ones we've been using around the park. We are going to colour this one up. And it's going to have a very, very simple entrance area here with a roof. And then some wood as you enter in, and we'll get that all lit up as well. Obviously we still got to put the entrance in. That will come a little bit later once we figured out what else is going in this area, but it is quite important that we get the outside bit done. And we're going to use the snow rocks rather than raise the, we don't want to raise the terrain around here, because obviously we want it flat for the rest of the area. So it's quite important that we use the blocks to kind of hide it away from view and not spoil the ride too much. The inside is going to be very, very simple here. We're literally going to block it off into a couple of segregated rooms. We'll have a kind of an entrance area where you will be outside. So you'll be outside as you go in, and we'll have a balcony. We're going to put some windows in. We're going to put some lights in, as well as some tree and some wall lights, before moving around the corner into more of an indoor section, which will have your candies, which will have your Christmas trees and all your presents, before heading round to the Winter World, the Snowman Lake. Now then, we're going to again light this up like it's an outdoor area. As you've seen there, we've put in some flashy lights. You will obviously see this towards the end as well, rather than kind of seeing how quick they're flashing. Now you'll see this towards the end how it works. So what I've done is I've lined it up with the windows, so it's literally flashing through the windows and it flashes onto the wall the other side. We're going to go through some candy canes. They're always quite popular. They make a lovely archway as well. You put a couple either side, it makes a lovely archway as you go down. And then of course the decoration of the trees and the bushes and things, which is really going to brighten up the indoor area. No, it's indoors, but the outdoor area of the ride. And then just around the corner here you will re-enter what would be an indoor section of the ride. And as you can see in there, we are going to place something very, very different. Starting with the lights, we want to make sure it is nice and bright as you go through here. We don't want too many spotlights, to be honest with you, as that will ruin the dark ride effect. But certainly these lights which you can put on the wall give just enough light as you go around to make it look Christmassy and make it look quite special. We'll have a little fireplace in here, give it the real sort of indoor look. Nice and simple fireplace, little Christmas tree and some presents around it. And of course we will top the building off with a roof. Now then, once this is done, we are moving on to our roller coaster, which is actually going over the other side of the park. But yeah, this has come across really, really nicely, and we are keeping it simple. We'll have we've got the present room there. We're going to have some more presents in here as well. It's just going to be absolutely rammed of Christmas presents, trees, a few candy canes at the beginning before you head into Snowman Lake. So yeah, a little bit different, a little bit outdoors, a little bit indoors, a little bit outdoors look, and the entrance being outdoors as well kind of gives it the different vibe to it being a completely indoor attraction. But yeah, it's come along really, really nicely. I'm quite looking forward to riding this. I'll obviously ride it before you guys do. And we have already put the lights as well. We've put a sequencer into the finale. And in this second room, there will be just a couple of very, very Christmas looking spotlights. Just a couple, not enough to brighten it up too much. We're not putting so many lights in there, we're not putting so many strips in the second room as what we've got in the first room. Now we'll complete the roof on this and we'll literally pile over what we've already got there. And you might see a little light there as well in the middle. You'll see that later on when we go for the POV of the ride. But we'll get the roof on right the way over before moving over to our roller coaster area. And you might be a bit shocked at what roller coaster we're going for here. I'd be very shocked if it's one that you would think we would be putting it in a Christmas park. But you'll see, I think it will work out really, really well. It is a bit of a trial and error, but quite looking forward to it. Now then, here we go. Here we go. Over the other side, here is our hypercoaster. Yep, just going to pause for thought there. A quick pause for thought. This is our hypercoaster, which we are going to build over the next 12 minutes, and this is sped up quite a lot, to be fair, and doesn't include everything which I went through trying to get this done. You will see how this will transform into a Christmas coaster, which perhaps you're wondering how that is going to happen. Now, as you can see there, as we test it as we go round, this isn't going to be a really thrilling coaster. We're not going up 200 foot, you know, we're not going to have massive drops or anything. It's going to be a real sort of coast down. And you know, the idea of this is with the hypercoaster, you can have single cars, and the single cars work on it really, really well. So the hypercoaster, this is based on the old Arrows model, much like Pepsi Max Big One at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, and you'd be expecting this to be absolutely huge, 200 foot plus, obviously, for the hyper. But that's not what we're going to do. We're going to make it a very, very simple coaster. And it's going to be the design and sort of the theme that makes this stand out as a Christmas coaster. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the terrain tool here, and as we've said before, we have turned off the collision with roller coasters and the scenery and even the flat rides and everything, and you'll kind of get to just now, as we build this up, what this coaster is going to be like, and quite honestly how long it's going to take to put together. So the idea is of this will be a hill. This will be a coaster that then glides down a hill much like a bobsleigh. Now, I know we could have used a bobsleigh coaster. However, with the bobsleigh coaster, you do have quite intrusive track with quite intrusive sides, either wooden or kind of clear, and you know, you wouldn't get to see the scenery around you. The idea of this coaster will be very much that, you know, you'll look like you're on a roller coaster, you'll cruise your way to the top really slowly as well, really, really slowly, before heading down the hill. Now, as you can see there, I've actually put back on the collision detection, because we are going to need to dig the correct size holes underneath the tunnel, and we'll have to do a few track amendments as well to kind of get them in, and we'll watch the trains as they go through, and then we'll bring them back off and kind of build around it. But yeah, the idea of this is it's going to be a hill. It's going to be a terrain-based coaster which glides down the mountain and then back to the start. So it's going to feel like and look like it's a complete free flow, where in reality it will obviously be on a track. Now then, for this we are going to leave the track elements in terms of the lift hill completely unexposed, and it will look like a roller coaster as you go up. And then once you get to the top, it will pretty much feel like you're just cruising into the mountain, and then you'll come down the side of, you know, the hill mountain, and we're going to theme this really, really tight to the track to make it look like you're gliding along the snow. I can tell you now, this is a long process, a really, really long process, and I think ideally, in hindsight, looking back at it, it probably would have been better if I didn't go back underneath itself and just did a you know, sort of like a tub ride, one of the old Virginia Royals that sort of just flows down the mountain left and right, left and right, left and right, rather than you know, going back under itself and making it a bit more complicated. But then, because I've made it a bit more complicated, it has made me you know, think outside the box and use the terrain tool different to what I would. So yeah, the terrain tool in Planet Coaster is magnificent. It's one of the highlights of the game. Anyone that's played the game or playing the game for the first time now, as we said, with the console versions out, will definitely have used the terrain tool for quick scenery. And you know, I think in Roller Coaster Tycoon, the terrain tool was just a bit like, you know, it just looks cheap. It doesn't look particularly great. But in Planet Coaster, it's totally different. You have so much control over it. You can, you know, make it look like proper rock work without having to put loads and loads of scenery pieces in, which ultimately slow the game down and the frame rate down as well. It's not the case with this. And as you can see here, we can make really subtle adjustments as we go round, and you can kind of see how we're putting this ride together and how we're going to theme it. Sure, it is taking a long time. I can tell you now, this took several hours to do as we go through, because even though I'm covering this now, it's got to be covered to a point where it doesn't look like the train is completely going into the mountain. It's got to look like it is gliding across the top. So there was a lot of adjustments in putting it and actually getting the track, you know, very slightly buried, and a lot of adjustments going around bit by bit, ensuring that it looked like it was gliding on the snow and not just disappearing into the mountain where the terrain wasn't quite right. Now the corners are definitely harder, there's no doubt about that, because we have used some bank turns. Ultimately, if you were going down a mountain, you would probably bank at some point. So we have used bank turns. We've not gone as sharp as what I would probably say you would on a roller coaster by any means, but enough that we will need to build the rock work up the side to make it feel like you are, you know, going down, and it's the rock work and the mountain that's sort of keeping you on track. It is, as I said, quite difficult to do. Again, let us know in the comments. Is this something you tried before with, you know, one of the roller coasters? I think I've seen a few people do it with dark rides before, but I've not really seen many people do it with roller coasters. We've seen a few, you know, a few particularly indoor attractions where people have used terrain to hide roller coaster track for indoor segments, but we really wanted to do something you know, a little bit unique, and we have used it before on indoor ones, and we have used it on coasters, and I've seen a couple of people use it on coasters, but we just want to, you know, make it completely different. And I think not going down just the side of the hill and actually having it go underneath has really posed a challenge for me, and you know, it's a really good challenge to make it look as good as I can. And the progress here does seem really slow, and I appreciate the progress seems slow, but it does suddenly come together really well. And although we have to run the ride continuously to see where we're going wrong and everything, getting the track covered was ultimately the biggest issue here, and then going round and actually making sure that the car looked good as it went round was the next issue. And then of course we need to theme it. Now, as you can see, we are kind of approaching the track underground, if you will, and then we're going to have to go back over and have a look. And the other problem is as well, once you put the track underground without the actual ride being highlighted, it's very difficult to see where it is. So you can see here that it glides down, and you can see there where I've, you know, completely and utterly buried it and had to go back to have a look. And the adjustments here take ages, honestly take ages, and it's a case of very slowly. You can see there you have you know, on the bottom right with the terrain tool, you have an intensity which kind of gives how quickly it would go up and down, and then you have a size, a radius of how far you want that to do. So for a project like this, having the intensity high really isn't a lot of good, because you are wanting to do really small adjustments, which means the intensity has to be low, which means you have to spend more time on the actual track area because it takes longer to do. But again, the results seem to be really good. And again, the terrain tool also comes with some magnificent painting. Now, usually when we do a park, we do a custom one. So the ice and things you can see on the bottom right there, and various different colours and effects, if you will, we would normally customize that so we could have a couple of different areas. So if we had a forestry based one, we might have it with sand, so we could do an adventure area, or we'd have a Wild West area as well, and possibly an ice area even in the snow, so we could do something based around that. Whereas this time I have just picked a sort of Arctic, you know, an Arctic base. So we have got frozen rock work to go on the inside of the snow, and we'll leave a little bit of rock showing, but ultimately, you know, this is going to be like an ice mountain. Now then, fallen trees is a you know, is always a thing when you go to things like this. So this is what we're going to have. We're going to have very simple wood theming of some logs, and the logs are you know, they look magnificent, they really do, and they can be used to go into tunnels like this, so it looks like it's holding up the you know, holding up the snow and keeping it all together. And they can also be used as laying flat across as a barrier, so it looks like it's a barrier. And what you'll notice there as well, so I've gone to the terrain tool and I've kind of used the grassy mud to make a trail. Now this not only makes it look like obviously the snow is wearing away as the train goes down, but it is helping me theme the area, because I can see as the car goes round, I can watch it and I can see exactly where it's going, so I can put some scenery around. We want to have some trees on this. You know, it's like a forestry ice mountain, so we definitely want to have some trees on this. We're going to put some little bushes in as well, and we're going to put a little building just after the sort of second drop, as if you're going around someone's house area as well, which you'll see us putting right here. So we're going to cover it first with the trees around the first drop, and you'll see the car just sort of, you know, goes around, make a few amendments on the mud there before we put in the actual house. So right here, it's going to be a very, very simple house. We don't want anything too complicated. Ultimately, you know, no one's ever coming up here. You're just going to see it as you go past, and it's going to look like it's sort of buried in the snow. Nice little wooden log cottage, and we'll put a little roof on this, put some windows, and of course we will put some little lights on the front, and you'll whiz past that on your sleigh to the bottom of the mountain. Now then, we want to make it look as realistic as possible. I actually don't know on the ride how much of this we will see because of the angle of the coaster train, but we will see that in the POV at the end. We're going to carry on using the strip lighting as well, because the strip lighting is fairly neutral, and of course we can have white up on the mountain. We don't really want too many bright colours up here. And I think for lighting, I mean, lighting in a park like this is, you know, really, really important. Like, really important for a Christmas park, that it's not too saturated in light. So here we're going to have, you're going to see the oil-based lamps, which we use to brighten up certain aspects of it. But again, these logs, you know, you can. The great thing is with this is you don't need to have them in exact positions, because they're effectively logs holding things up. You know, they can look a little bit rough and dug into the ground, which is what we're doing here, and it, you know, looks like it's keeping the train in motion whilst looking like it's, you know, part of the scenery as well. It's worked really, I have to say, I'm really happy with how this ride has turned out, and indeed, well, it is turning out and has turned out in the end. Obviously, I've seen the finished article of this, and I love the way it sort of makes its way down, you know, down the mountain back to the beginning. I just think, you know, sometimes the simplest of things, we've not had to use much scenery, we've not had to use, you know, too much detail, and it just whizzes through the trees in the mountain. Now, obviously, around the back here, this is, you know, whilst it's not seen from the front of the park, when you're on the ride, you're really going to see this, and it still requires quite a lot of work as well. And of course, in the tunnels, we don't want to put anything, because these are like ice tunnels, so I don't want to put anything inside the tunnels. But again, we're going to have the same principle where this is the corner, you know, this is the train whizzing through your little sleigh, if you will, whizzing through the wood as it heads back down and around the corner. And this is also the sharpest corner and the steepest drop. But again, we want to make it look like you're out of control, and, you know, you're not really attached to anything, and you could hit the wood or the side at any time, and put some trees in there to give it a real element of danger. So yeah, don't get me wrong, the scenery on this is really, really simple. It really is simple. The terrain work has taken a long time, a real long time, but the scenery is really, really simple. And sometimes that is the best way to produce you know, a really unique, different kind of either roller coaster or flat ride experiences, something like that. Now then, we are going to finish off this ride, and you will see it obviously on the POV. We're going to do a day and night time as well, but we are coming to the end of this episode, and this is our first roller coaster. But please let us know in the comments below, what do you think about this little sort of hyper bobsleigh coaster? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you done something like this before? Will you do something like this in the future? Thank you for joining us this episode. Come back tomorrow for episode 3.